Valentina Shevchenko, she looked like a mortal against Tyler Santos. However, there's a bit of controversy to go with this, man. A lot of people are upset. A lot of people are saying, oh, is this John Jones versus Dominic Reyes? A lot of people are saying, is this Floyd Mayweather versus Marcos Maidana? Is Shevchenko, was she gifted a decision simply because she's the champion? And I don't agree with that sentiment at all. I think that if you're a casual fight fan, you have that opinion because, to be honest, you don't know what you're watching. You see that a challenger has success against the coveted champion, and you overhype or you outweigh what they're actually doing in comparison to what's happening in the fight, AJ. So before we even talk about this, raw opinion. Did Shevchenko, did she get this win via robbery? Was it just a really, really close fight? Or was Shevchenko never really in a terrible, terrible spot to truly lose this fight?
She was in a couple terrible spots, Derek. There was a couple where not necessarily under the chin, but
Yeah.
when Tyler Santos had the backpack on Valentina, there was a couple moments where I was nervous, man. And come round 3, tell me not, you were also a little nervous too when it started. Valentina was getting her way, and then right back to it. Tyler Santos gets to the bottom, has the ground control. I know. For me, I was a little nervous. I won't let it lie. I was stressing a little bit for this one. I thought, I was like, shit, man, I'm losing another. Like, okay, like this is gonna be a rough one, but. I mean, I think what did it for me, and I just believe that Valentina did win the fight. What did it for me was the striking. Not necessarily also the striking on the feet, but while she was on the ground, even when she had her back, she's throwing the shots, she's going, she's scrambling, she's creating damage the entire time, while Santos is just defending, looking for things, not necessarily getting them or hunting for them, but just looking for the openings, which I don't know, I think, depends on how you score it, but I think that did a lot for me, where Shevchenko just stayed busy the entire time.
Yeah.
Did you have Shev winning, or was it Santos actually getting it for you?
I had Shevchenko winning, and I thought Tyler Santos did a very commendable job. I think she made the fight a lot closer than a lot of people thought. But the way she did it wasn't this domination, you know what I mean? Like, oh man, Shevchenko's getting her ass whooped right now. It was, all right, I somehow fell into a scramble. I took her back. I gave a couple submission attempts. And that's it. So that's like the danger of having the champ in that trouble of like, oh, fuck, man. Like, who the fuck even has Shevchenko's back? Who puts their arm remotely next to her throat? Like, nobody does that. But if you look at what effective striking did you do? What type of ground and pound did you do? Did you really do anything other than kind of just hold Shevchenko down? I mean, look at her face after the fight, man. There's like nothing. You know what I mean? Like she was unscathed. And look at Santos's face. But I'm not going to say that that's the real tell of the story, because truly headbutts, man, that orthodox southpaw clash of heads multiple times really put the nail in the coffin for Santos. Because I would like to see this fight ran back again. And, without that, not being able to see from one of your eyes, right? Even our coach, that's why you have 2 eyes. Don't worry about that shit. That's some Goggin shit right there. You got to love that, man. But let's take a look real fast, man. So we'll pull this down and we'll take a look at the stats. So Shevchenko, this is the thing that people aren't seeing. Shevchenko outlanded Tyler Santos 234 to 128. Now, how they get you is they say, well, those strikes weren't significant. Why are they not significant? Because they're pot shots? Because, well, she has her back. She's just throwing shots to her face the whole time. I mean, they count for something, man. So to say that, all right, man, yeah, you outlanded her by over 100 strikes, but we're not going to count that. I don't know how to feel about that. Either way, significant strikes, he still outlanded her by 20. Takedowns, 3 and 3 a pop, right? And the only thing that's different here is control time. Yeah, Santos had 4 more minutes of control time, but what did you do with it? And this is ultimately the question that I have at hand, AJ. What is being counted more these days? And we say it's always different. This was in Singapore. This was in Vegas. This was in Arizona. This is different. Control time or damage? Because you can control somebody for 10 minutes, but if you do not damage them, what does your control time actually mean, right? The only thing I can give Santos true props on is she had a couple submission attempts, a couple rear naked choke attempts, a couple times where Shevchenko really had to fight, put the 2-on-1, get the hand over the head, All right, respect, man. She did very good, very commendable. But let's be honest here. To sit here and truly say, robbery, Shevchenko lost that, I just feel like that's not a true depiction of what happened, correct?
I agree. And I think the only reason people are saying that is because we haven't seen Shevchenko in that kind of position before. But even to that, like even to the point that she did have a backpack put on her, the submission attempts were flying around. Shevchenko still had the presence of mind to defend all the stuff that was going on and start turning around and throwing the punches. Normally when that stuff kind of happens and you decide you're going to start punching back, that's when the submission gets locked up. Wasn't even close. Wasn't even close. Valentina was still, even though she didn't have the dominating position, she was still in control of what was happening, if that makes sense. I hope you feel what I'm saying right there, Derek. Where she was
Yeah,
still in the driver's seat, even though she wasn't really. It was like the test drivers, where you're taking your ID
yeah,
test or your driver's license. The guy in the passenger seat, he got the brake, he got the
yeah.
steering wheel, he can help, but you're kind of in the control. I feel like that's what was going on, and it made a lot of the casuals think that
Yeah.
Tyler Santos got it done.
Absolutely, bro. And I will say this: I will give credit where credit is due. Tyler Santos, listen, she came, she was game, she was ready to go, and she exploited Shevchenko's weakness. And Shevchenko's weakness, believe it or not, in my opinion, here, Shevchenko's weakness is wanting to beat you at your own game. So she says, "Oh, you want to outgrapple me? Oh, you're gonna fall right into my trap. Like perfect, you know what I mean?" And Shevchenko kept going to the well. Like Shevchenko was initiating the grappling sequences, getting out grappled, and then being like, "Damn, how did I end up here with my back taken?" So it's just like, okay, now our coaches did the right thing. They didn't pull the Nami Yunus approach, but they did the right thing. Said, "You need to stop initiating all of that stuff, man. Strike with her, kickbox her. You're gonna beat her at distance," and that's basically what she did. Now I don't know if you have off the top of your head the assessment of which rounds you thought that she won, but I thought that round where Shevchenko had her back taken and she was doing the effective striking, she was doing all that. I think that was round 2. I can give rounds 2, rounds 4, and round 5 to Valentina Shevchenko. Now, the problem here, and this is what I actually wanted to bring in, is the controversial nature of the scoring here. You know what I'm saying? So let's talk about it real fast, bro. Valentina Shevchenko, she wins 49-46, which is kind of a crazy score, 48-47, 47-48 split decision. David Letheby awarded Santos rounds 1 through 3 while giving the champions round 4 and 5, and he's the sole judge that saw it going Santos's way. Now, Clemens Warner, he gave Shevchenko rounds 1, 2, 4, and 5, and most fans see that scorecard as abysmal. So let's talk about it real fast, bro. Because like I said, I don't know. I feel like that's a little bit of a rough way to see it. So I'm gonna go to my MMA decisions right now. I'm gonna pull this down, and here we go. Okay, so Shevchenko versus Santos, split decision. All right, man. So like I said, and folks who are just listening at home, we're just taking a look at the scoring right now. So we see Howard Hughes, I think, has the most. Yeah, he has the scorecard that I agreed with. Right, rounds 2, rounds 4, rounds 5 going to Shevchenko. You can give Santos rounds 1. You can give Santos rounds 3. Right, and this is another one of those situations where people are like, you never see Shevchenko lose a round 1. Like round 1, like oh man, you know. But like I said, credit where credit is due. Now, when you take a look, AJ, and you see the MMA scores, and you see across the board, it is heavily, heavily, heavily in favor of Valentina Shevchenko. I want to know your opinion on this. And this is really the question that I have here. What are we doing a disservice as casual fans, not us, but the casual fans out there that are just watching, that just tune in for the pay-per-views? Are we doing a disservice to the sport by having these kind of like terrible takes of like, this is a robbery and clearly Santos, like people are hitting me up all over the place. Like, no, I think Santos was robbed, da, 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 da. And I'm just like, dude, she did a good job, bro. But like, is it that as fans we're not knowledgeable? Like, what is it? What is the disconnect here?
I think it has to be the narrative the UFC's putting forward of how dominating it is, because it's either that or lack of awareness to what's actually going on in the fight situation, which I don't want to say that's the case for most casual fans. But if the commentators, if the referees are also confused on what counts more for scoring, how can the fans not be? So yeah, I don't really hold too many people that accountable for that one, not knowing exactly what it is. Because as you said many a time, Derek, yourself, the UFC is amazing at creating a narrative, creating a storyline, and getting people thinking one way when really, this is actually what unfolded. So I think it has to be somewhat of a media perception going on, just like you think for the longest time, especially in a couple of fights that were previous, not in the same night, but like previous fight cards. Where people were holding you down and they get the win. So everyone thinks like, oh, she has the better position. This is what's going on. But really, damage is what we're looking for at the end of the day, most of us. So I don't know. That's what I think. What about you, Derek?
Yeah, no, I'm with you, bro. And I think that at the end of the day, I just think that as a fan base, we need to get more educated. But I do think that, like, you're right. It's problematic because no matter where you go, there's going to be different judging criteria. The judges are going to see it differently. And actually, I was watching this, and when I was watching it, I was telling the people I was watching it with, I was all like, man, like, they're like, who do you think won that round? I think that's clearly Shevchenko or that's clearly Santos. And I was like, well, it just really depends on how the judges see it. You know what I mean? Like, I cannot say clear cut, this is so-and-so's round, because it just depends on what you are looking at. Either way, let's talk about the positive note on this. Great job to Tyler Santos. I will say say she made it much more competitive than I ever thought, but this was the outcome that I predicted more or less. Shevchenko doing what she has to do to get the job done. Listen, Shevchenko, she just tied Amanda Nunes for most title defenses in women's MMA UFC promotional history, I guess I should say. And while that is impressive, she came number one. She overpassed Ronda Rousey in most title defenses in a single division. So Ronda Rousey had 6, Shevchenko has 7. I think it is very clear to say at this point, given, like I said, the nature of Amanda Nunes right now, depending on whether she can get her belt back at bantamweight or not, Valentina Shevchenko has more or less rightfully so stepped into the place of the greatest of all time women's competitor that we have seen in the sport. She has wins over Joanna Jędrzejczyk, the strawweight queen, right? She's had back and forth battles with Amanda Nunes, arguably beat Amanda Nunes in the rematch, man. And it looks like at this point, Valentina Shevchenko is going to be looking to parlay her success into another bantamweight title shot, depending on if Juliana Pena defeats Amanda Nunes or Amanda gets the job done again. So we'll definitely see what happens in the near future. But I will say, at the end of the day, I do not think this was a robbery. I think this was a close fight. And AJ, I hope that you agree with me here. But I think Shevchenko, people are already writing her off, saying that, oh, this is the beginning of the end. She's looking old, da-da-da-da-da. I think she has plenty left in the tank. And so this is still just more or less the start for Shevchenko. Do you agree?
Oh yeah. She's still, even though she's still at the top of the division, I still feel like she has some room to grow, and she's getting better, and she knows that.
Yeah, and
like she even said herself, no one's perfect.
Yeah. Well, yeah. You have to also argue, man. It's hard to rise up to the level of rise up to the challenge when it's like, who, number 4, Santos? Who is this person? You know what I mean? Like, give me something to wake me up. You know what I mean? Something that gets me excited. But enough talking about that. Those were your 2 title fights. So